I never thought I'd end up here, typing this out like some twisted confession, but here I am. I've been married for 6 years to a man who's dependable, practical, and utterly uninterested in me lately. We don't fight. We don't even talk much anymore. It's like coexisting in the same space, passing each other like ghosts. I used to try. I really did. I'd initiate intimacy, plan dates, dress up for him. But after a while, the rejection wears you down. You stop trying. You start fading. Then there's Liam, my stepson. He was 13 when I met him. Awkward, guarded, quiet. It took years to get through his walls. I helped him with school, sat through his sulking teen years, cooked for him, listened when he opened up, just a little. Somewhere along the way, he started calling me by my name instead of her. That felt like a win. He's 19 now, taller than his father, deeper voice, grown into himself. He has his mother's eyes but his dad's sharp jaw. He's respectful, kind, and looks at me in a way that no one has in a long, long time. I didn't think much of it at first. You don't let your mind go there. He's my stepson. That boundary isn't just clear, it's reinforced with steel bars. But loneliness can make monsters of all of us. We planned a weekend getaway, me, my husband, and Liam. Just something small. A cabin by the lake. I booked it. Something calm to shake up the routine. We were only there for a day, when my husband got a work call he couldn't ignore. Emergency meeting back in the city. He had to leave. Said he'd be back by the last day. Told us to enjoy ourselves, left the keys, and drove off. It was awkward at first. I didn't want Liam to feel weird about being alone with me. We didn't have separate rooms, just one big bed and a couch. The couch was awful. Thin cushions, barely any support. I offered it to him first, he refused. Said I should take the bed. We argued back and forth for 10 minutes before I finally said, "We're both adults. It's one bed. We'll sleep. That's it." He nodded and said, "Yeah, it's not a big deal." That night, I kept to my side, turned toward the window. I could feel the heat of him beside me. The bed felt suddenly small. At some point in the night, I rolled closer, maybe out of habit, maybe something else. My hand brushed his by accident. I pulled back like I'd touched fire. He didn't say anything. I heard his breathing change, then slow. He was awake. The next morning, we barely made eye contact. He ate his cereal standing up. I drank my coffee in silence. There was no talk about the night. We acted like normal, which made it weirder. During the day, we tried to keep busy. Hiked a little trail behind the cabin. I slipped on a loose rock, and he caught me by the elbow. A quick touch, nothing lingering, but it felt like something buzzed between us. Later, we cooked pasta together. He grated the cheese, and I stirred the sauce. We laughed about how awful the wine was. It was easy, too easy. That made it dangerous. He told me he didn't feel close to his dad anymore. That he felt more comfortable with me. I tried to give him something encouraging, but the truth was I didn't feel close to his father either. I told him I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. He looked at me, just looked, and I felt seen for the first time in months. That's where the danger begins, not in touch, but in being noticed. That night, it got colder. The cabin heating was shoddy. I brought an extra blanket to bed. He climbed in. We stayed on opposite ends. Eventually, the cold one. We edged closer. I could feel his body heat through the sheets. His arm brushed mine. He didn't move away. Neither did I. I told myself I was imagining the tension. That it was the silence, the intimacy of the space, the wine, the loneliness, all adding up to something that wasn't real. But I knew better. He was so still, like he was waiting. My heart thudded against my ribs, and I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. Then his fingers touched mine. Barely. Just one touch. He didn't grab, didn't make a move. Just rested them there. I didn't pull away. We said nothing. The air was thick. I think we both knew we'd crossed the edge of something, even if nothing had happened. Yet. The next morning, he was gone from the bed. Already dressed, sitting on the porch with coffee. He smiled when I walked out, but there was something behind his eyes. Guilt? Desire? I couldn't tell. We didn't mention the night before, but I felt it growing, quietly, like a storm building at the edge of a horizon. He didn't say anything about the night before, and neither did I. But everything had shifted. It wasn't just tension, it was awareness. I could feel his eyes on me more often, longer. I noticed how he moved around me, more cautious, more measured. Like we were both trying to hold something back. We spent the day walking through a nearby trail. At first, it was quiet. Then he started talking. He told me how he hated being treated like a kid, how his dad never really saw him as more than a responsibility. I listened, nodding, offering small responses. He spoke about his mom, how she moved on so quickly, how it made him feel disposable. I didn't say anything to that. It didn't feel like my place. But when he said, "You're the only one who's ever really listened to me," I felt it like a blade. It wasn't just the words. It was how he said them. Quietly, like he wasn't sure if he should. And something inside me cracked open a little more. I told him I understood. That I didn't feel seen either. That most days I didn't feel like I mattered in my own marriage. He looked at me, soft, almost protective. That look scared me more than anything. That night, I poured a glass of wine after dinner. He joined me. One glass became two. We didn't say much, just sat next to each other on the couch. The fire crackled low. He asked what I used to dream about before I got married. I told him I used to write poetry, that I wanted to be a teacher, that somewhere along the way I stopped wanting things because it hurt too much to remember what I gave up. He said, "You still look like someone with dreams." I laughed. Then he said, "I mean it." I didn't respond. My chest tightened. I stood up and went to the sink to rinse my glass. He followed. Close. Too close. He didn't touch me. Just stood there, behind me. I could feel the heat of him. I told him, "You should go to bed." My voice wasn't steady. He didn't move right away. Then he whispered, "Okay." But the pause before he turned away said everything. Back in bed, the cold returned. I wrapped myself in a blanket, determined not to let anything happen. I faced away. Minutes passed. Then I felt the mattress shift. He was on his side, facing me. His breathing was slow but uneven. I closed my eyes. I was trying to shut it all out. Then I heard him whisper, "I don't want to make you uncomfortable." I didn't respond. Then, "But I don't know how to stop thinking about you." My heart jumped. I whispered, "You should." "I know," he said, barely audible. "But I won't lie. I don't want to." I turned toward him, slowly. He was so close. I could barely see his face in the dark, but I could feel the truth between us. I said his name, soft, like a warning. He didn't move. He didn't push. Just waited. Then I said something I regret even more than what happened later. I said, "I haven't felt wanted in years." He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. But we didn't touch. We didn't say another word. Eventually, I turned away, and we both pretended to sleep. The next morning, we didn't talk about it. Again. But this time, he lingered in the kitchen while I made coffee. He stood close again, brushing against me lightly as he passed behind. I felt his presence like a pulse. Everything between us was loud even in silence. He asked if I wanted to watch a movie later, just to pass the time. I agreed, knowing I shouldn't. That evening, we sat on the couch again, closer this time. His arm brushed mine. I didn't move. I leaned just slightly in his direction. Nothing happened, but my body betrayed me. I wanted him to touch me. When the credits rolled, I got up quickly, heart racing. I told him I was tired. He said, "Good night," but didn't mean it like a goodbye. I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. And then I heard the creak of the floorboards. He stopped at the edge of the room. I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I could feel him watching me in the dark. I whispered, "You shouldn't be here." "I know," he said. Still, he stood there. I turned my head toward him. He looked lost. Not lustful. Not manipulative. Just lost. "I can't do this," I said. "I'm sorry," he said. I needed to see you." I closed my eyes, wishing everything would just go quiet. But I didn't tell him to leave. After a few seconds, he turned and walked out. I stared at the door long after it closed, wondering what part of me had just let go. Wondering if something sacred had already broken, even if nothing had happened yet. Because that's the truth. Nothing had happened. But it had. We both knew it. We had crossed into something we couldn't walk back from. And I wasn't sure I wanted to. I woke up restless, heart pounding, already thinking about him. It was sick, I knew that. But my mind wouldn't stop looping the things he'd said, the way he looked at me. I'd crossed so many internal lines already, it felt like the next one was inevitable. I spent the morning avoiding him, acting like I was busy. He gave me space but kept stealing glances when he thought I wasn't looking. I noticed. I always notice now. By late afternoon, the temperature dropped fast. The wind picked up. The power went out just after sunset. No heat, no lights. I found candles in a drawer and lit a few. The warm glow softened everything, made it feel surreal, like none of this was real life anymore. He helped me light more. We sat in silence while the shadows flickered around us. There was a weight in the air, something pressing down on both of us. He spoke first. "I don't want to mess things up," he said. "But I can't stop thinking about you." I didn't respond. I didn't have the strength to. He continued. "I know I shouldn't say that. But I don't want to pretend anymore." I looked at him and saw everything he wasn't saying in his eyes. Desire. Confusion. Need. All of it mirrored mine. I whispered, "This isn't right." But I didn't move away. I didn't tell him to stop. "I don't care anymore," he said. "I've been thinking about you for months." I try to push it down, but I can't. "You're not just my dad's wife. You're the first person I've ever wanted like this." I didn't ask him to explain. I knew exactly what he meant. I said, "If you touch me, I won't stop you." He didn't move. For a long time, we just stared at each other. Then slowly, deliberately, he leaned in. Our lips brushed once, hesitantly, then again, deeper. My hands gripped the back of his neck before I realized what I was doing. My body moved before my conscience had time to scream. Every breath, every second, unraveled something inside me. The ache I'd buried for years broke loose in a flood of sensation. We didn't speak. It was too fragile, too dangerous to put into words. But our bodies did. We tore down every barrier we'd built. Everything about it was wrong. The timing, the situation, the betrayal, but it didn't feel wrong in the moment. It felt like waking up after a lifetime of sleep. His touch wasn't hesitant. It was reverent. Careful. Like I mattered. Like I was wanted. After, we lay in silence. I didn't know what to say. I felt raw. Not just guilty, exposed. He reached for my hand. I let him hold it. We didn't look at each other. My mind raced. What the hell did I just do? "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Don't be," I replied before I could stop myself. I meant it. And I hated that I meant it. We stayed there for what felt like hours, saying nothing. My body was still humming. My heart was a war zone, shame clashing with longing, guilt tangled with relief. Eventually, I got up and slipped into the bathroom. I stared at my reflection, saw the mess of a woman I'd become. My skin was flushed, my hair a tangle, my eyes rimmed in red. I looked like someone who had finally broken. When I came out, he was dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed. He looked at me like he didn't know if he should say something or just leave. I sat down next to him. "We can't do this again," I said. He nodded. "I know," but his voice was hollow. The next day, we acted like it never happened. Like we hadn't crossed the line. He stayed out most of the day, wandering the woods around the cabin. I cleaned obsessively. I couldn't look him in the eye. That night, we slept in the same bed again. Nothing happened, but everything had changed. I couldn't pretend anymore. I'd done the one thing I swore I never would. I'd betrayed the man I married, with his son. The worst part was I didn't regret it. Not fully. Regret would have been cleaner, easier to process. But all I felt was loss. Loss of control, loss of morality, loss of the person I thought I was. When I looked at Liam, I didn't see a mistake. I saw the version of myself I used to be. The one who craved connection, who wanted to be seen. The morning after, my husband came back. Early. Said the meeting ended quicker than expected. Walked in with his duffel bag and a smile, completely unaware. Liam stiffened. I froze. We played our roles. Said we missed him. He didn't notice anything. Not the tension. Not the silence. Not the looks we avoided giving each other. That night, I watched my husband fall asleep next to me, arms across his chest like always. I stared at the ceiling, one hand under the covers, the other clutching the edge of the bed like it might keep me from drowning in myself. I had become a stranger to the woman I used to be. And no one knew except me and him. Liam didn't speak to me much after that. Just short, polite sentences. He avoided being alone with me. I could feel his guilt growing roots, making him colder, distant. I didn't chase him. I couldn't. I didn't trust myself not to make it worse. But the silence screamed louder than any words could. What we did wasn't a secret. It was a scar, still fresh, barely covered, and bleeding beneath every polite smile. The ride home was unbearable. My husband drove while I stared out the window, counting trees, pretending everything outside was more important than what was sitting beside and behind me. Liam stayed silent in the back seat. Not a single word the entire trip. My husband didn't notice. Or maybe he did and chose not to ask. He was good at ignoring things that didn't fit neatly into his world. That's how we lasted this long. Me keeping quiet and him never digging too deep. Back at home, everything resumed. Dishes in the sink, laundry waiting, bills on the counter. Normal life waited with open arms like nothing had happened. But I wasn't the same. I didn't fit into the quiet routines anymore. I tried. I made dinner, answered work emails, laughed when I was supposed to. But inside, I was unraveling. The version of me that existed before that cabin didn't come back. Liam avoided me. I understood. We both needed distance, but it didn't make the ache any easier. When we passed each other in the hallway, his eyes never met mine. He moved out a week later, back to campus, claiming he needed to be closer to his classes. My husband thought it was maturity. Growth. He said he was proud of him. I just nodded, trying not to choke on the guilt pressing into my ribs. I spent nights in silence, lying next to a man who had no idea who I'd become. Every time he touched me, I froze. Not because I didn't want him, but because I felt like I didn't deserve to be touched by someone who trusted me. I flinched at my own reflection. Everything about me looked the same, but nothing inside was. I carried the weight in my chest, in my stomach, in the way I could meet my own eyes. He called one night. Liam. I almost didn't answer. When I picked up, he didn't say hello. Just silence on the other end. I didn't say anything either. Then finally, I think about it every day. I closed my eyes. My throat tightened. I said nothing. I know it was wrong, he said, but I don't regret it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hang up. Instead, I whispered, I do. Not because I meant it, but because it was the only thing that could be said out loud. He didn't reply, just quiet breathing. Then he said, I miss you. My fingers dug into my palm. I whispered, don't call me again. And I meant it, because whatever we had, whatever flickered between us, it didn't belong in the light. It was forged in loneliness, in brokenness. It didn't get to survive the real world. Days passed, then weeks. I tried to feel normal again, tried to forgive myself. But shame doesn't care about time. It clings. It waits in quiet corners and whispers when you least expect it. One night, my husband told me he wanted to try again. To reconnect. He admitted he'd been distant. Said he missed me. That he wanted to find his way back to us. The timing would have been perfect if it weren't so late. I smiled. Said I wanted that too. I lied. Because the truth was, I couldn't go back. Not really. Something had broken, and I wasn't sure it could be fixed. I didn't miss Liam in the way I thought I would. What I missed was how he made me feel, wanted, seen, alive. It wasn't about him. It never was. He just happened to be the one who looked when I needed it most. I started going on walks alone. Long ones. No music. No distractions. I needed the silence to sort through the noise inside me. I thought a lot about consequences, about how no one had found out, but I still wasn't free. Guilt doesn't require witnesses. Just memory. I never spoke to Liam again. He sent one message, "I'm sorry," months later. I didn't reply. I think that was the final boundary I could still control. My marriage survived, technically. On paper, everything looked fine. But I knew the truth. I knew what I was capable of now. And once you see yourself in that light, it never fully goes away. I didn't stop being a wife. But I stopped being the version of myself that believed lines couldn't be crossed. That version died in a cabin, under candlelight, when I chose to say nothing and let everything happen. There's no clean ending. No punishment. No redemption. Just days passing, quietly, while I carry a truth no one else knows. And maybe that's the worst part, not the act, not the guilt, but the silence after. The pretending. The mask you wear every day, while the real you stays locked behind your teeth. This is the part of infidelity no one talks about. The part that comes after. The part where you go on living. And every time someone says your name with love, you wonder if they'd still say it if they knew.